Day and the Raiders and the Ravens, and of course the undefeated Baltimore Ravens. If you missed our live programming from Greenmount Station out on Facebook Live or on our YouTube WNSTV channel, you can find it out in the Buy Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. And when I say anywhere in the world, I mean anywhere in the world. We're going to go halfway around the world right now. It's always 14 hours ahead there. They live life ahead down under in the land of Oz. My wife and I are planning a sojourn in February to see Bruce Springsteen in Australia. This guy is not in the Brisbane or the Sydney or the Adelaide area. He's in Melbourne. He is a huge Orioles fan. He runs a website from Australia about all things Baltimore sports and the Orioles. Many follow him. He has a wonderful Australian accent that I'm sure my wife will appreciate. He is Dan Clark. His website is djcsports.com. He's also out on Twitter at Dan Clark Sports. Award-winning writer and owner of TBL Daily and Down Under, and loving that Hyun-Soo Kim home run in Toronto. We welcome Dan Clark, one of our defending champions, back onto the program. What's up, Dan? How are things down under, man?
Very good, mate. Very good. It's a cold Thursday night down here, but
just winter there, right? Summer means winter.
Well, we're just starting spring. Well, we're a month in, but it's been a pretty horrible spring so far. So, yeah, it's good to have a chat again. And, yeah, geez, what about that shot from Kim? Hey, geez, did we ever need that?
Yeah.
Very timely. But, again, look, it's great to see them win and, Trumbo and Kim hitting bombs again. But, geez, they're living and dying by the long ball and it's killing the team. It really is. And
along with that comes the strikeouts too. Part of swinging from your heels is when you don't hit it, you strike out. You don't move runners around. You don't take walks. It's a hideous brand of baseball, quite frankly. It's an ugly form of baseball. And when they win, you say, "Oh, they were lucky to win."
Yeah, exactly. And the good thing with Kim is his ninth. I think it was the ninth pitch of his at bat. Even before he launched it, it's amazing to think we're talking about Kim in this context, given what we saw 5-6 months ago in spring training. But geez, he's just had such a good year, and again, as I said, it was a crucial at bat. But again, is it just covering up the many flaws of this offense? We saw, I think after the Red Sox series, I sent out a tweet saying they'll probably go and sweep Arizona and cover up all the cracks. And well, they did exactly that. And I think again last night's win probably covers up the cracks again. I think they were 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position, and that was an infield hit. So there's still a lot of concerns, I think, and unless they can snap out of it, they may sneak in the wild card, but I can't see them progressing too far in October if they keep playing the way they are.
Well, you say covering up the cracks, right? I mean, I think that's a wonderful expression for this because that's what they've been doing for about 4 months now, ever since they sort of slowed down in early July and they really got slower toward the end of July. Since then, it's been, our pitching, let's figure it out. And then O'Day gets hurt, and then Tillman's not around. And, Jimenez comes on. They bring up Bundy, which is something they didn't want Dylan Bundy starting games in August and September of this year. They wanted Wilson, and they wanted Wright. They wanted those guys to be the guys at this point, the next version of Gonzalez and the next version of Chen to come through. And the covering up the cracks part really is they had better at-bats earlier in the year. Jonathan Scope, Adam Jones, Chris Davis, they're all capable of better at-bats. We saw that through the first 150, 200 at-bats of the season. And the last 200 at-bats have been the really bad version of all of these guys. Really, especially Jones and Scope, I feel, and the kinds of pitch selection. Wieters has been sort of exposed over the long season. And I guess he'll be moving on. But, of course, we said that last year about him and Davis. But they're not built to win a World Series. But they might be built to get to Tuesday. I mean, and if they can get to Tuesday, they can get to Thursday. And if they can get to Thursday, they can get to Arlington. And if they can get to Arlington, they can hit a couple of home runs. I mean, you start to be delusional about their abilities. But I've seen stranger things, Dan, than them playing baseball 2 or 3 weeks from now and winding up in the ALCS against the Red Sox and sort of catching fire and hitting 5 home runs a game for a couple of days because they are capable of doing that.
They are. And, look, if you look early in the season, they were so streaky, a number of 7-game winning streaks, 5-game winning streaks, etc. And I think the fan in all of us wants us to see that occur again, and we know that if they get hot, that can occur. Look, they don't need the whole lineup to get hot. If Manny, Jonesy, and Davis get hot, that's all we need. That'll score you.
Yeah, somebody's got to get hot, right? Yeah, I mean, you can't be 0 for 9 in your lineup with guys who are hot. I agree.
Yeah.
2 or 3 bats
and
for a week, sure, they carry the team.
And it's not just 0 for 9. It's the harder lineup. Your 3, 4, 5 are going 0 for 9. With 3 or 4 strikeouts as well. Scope, you touch on Scope. I think he's hitting under 170 this month. Jonesy's picked up a few infield hits, which has probably boosted his average. I think it's around 250 this month. But his pitch selection, when he first went to the leadoff spot, we were all surprised. He did seem to be a little bit more patient than he typically is. But I guess he's fallen back into some habits. In saying that, Jones overall he's been really good this season, and I think the biggest concern again is Davis. Especially keeping in mind the new contract, and there's a lot of frustration there among the fan base, and that's without him finishing his first year. So it's going to continue to annoy fans. He'll probably hit 40 home runs a year, but gee, can we take the 220 strikeouts, whatever it is, and the 200 batting average? Is it worth the investment? And right now, I reckon if you ask most fans, it's probably a no at this stage.
You follow the team from Melbourne, Australia, and to give everyone your background, just to introduce yourself as to how a guy from halfway around the world has become an Oriole fan. And I don't think people realize baseball's a little bigger in Australia. I mean, it's not a forgotten sport or hidden the way it is in China or in Eastern Europe where no one plays the game and it's not there. It's certainly not super popular in Australia. But I'll tell you this, Dan, and I know I told you this last time. The night we saw Bruce Springsteen in Brisbane, Australia, my wife and I, in Australia, we didn't eat in any sort of hotsy-totsy restaurants. We were on the road most of the time. We were eating road food, and we went to supermarkets, and literally we would just, buy some lunch meats and some salads and whatnot to get us through the day every day. And I was walking through a supermarket in the produce aisle, and I looked up, and there was a guy wearing an Oriole hat. And of course, I had to, I had to converse with a guy wearing an Oriole hat in Australia that I just randomly bumped into in a produce aisle in a supermarket. And turned out he said he was a big Chris Davis fan and he loved baseball and he watched baseball all the time. I think from your part of the world, though, it's a morning sport, right? It's a pretty much 9 a.m. to sort of 4 in the afternoon sport. So it does happen for you when you're awake, which is a little different than I think one of the reasons Europe will never catch on to baseball is it's played at 4 o'clock in the morning there.
Yeah, I mean, any of the evening games on the East Coast, as you said, 9 till midday the following day, so the day ahead we are. And then West Coast games are midday till 3. So
the tough games are the afternoon games, though, right? They happen at like 4 in the morning for you, right?
Yeah, and from my point of view, also a Ravens fan, the last 3 Sundays, they've obviously had the day game, so it's 3 a.m. Monday morning for me. And look, oddly enough, the Orioles have probably played their best baseball on Sundays the last 3 weeks, with the Orioles and Ravens winning on both winning on those days. So it is a morning sport. The day games are a killer. When they go to Chicago each year, or last year, I think they played 3 of they might have played 4 out of 5, I think, against the Cubs and the Sox were day games, so that was literally nearly a whole week of 3 a.m. wake up. So that makes it pretty tough. But yeah, usually 6 games a week would be 9 a.m. starts my time. So it's pretty good. You get to work, you chuck the earphones in, and listen away.
Well, did you discover baseball first, or the Orioles first, or Baltimore? How did this all happen for you to be a guy in Australia, very, very active on Twitter during Oriole games and 10,000 followers?
Yeah, so look, I always been a baseball fan. Played baseball as a kid over here. T-ball initially, and then baseball. And,
how did it come to you? Did a bunch of your friends play, or was this? I mean, this isn't a neighborhood thing to play baseball in Australia, right? I mean, you guys play rugby and you play Aussie rules and you play soccer, right? Basketball too.
Yeah, and cricket. Cricket's a big one. A lot of us who played cricket, cricket's a very, in terms of skill, very different rules obviously, but in terms of the actual basic skill of bat on ball, Cricket's very similar, a lot of throwing and so forth. So a lot of us who played cricket as kids were, a lot of our coaches said, if you want to improve your cricket, go play baseball, because you can play winter baseball over here with cricket's your summer sport. So a few of us did that. A lot of us did that as kids, and it made us better cricketers because we can throw the ball a lot harder and a lot flatter. Through getting some proper coaching, and then we're a lot more aggressive hitters in cricket because I guess just naturally the way baseball is played translates into a more aggressive form of cricket. So that's really helped as kids, and then I guess a lot of kids have probably moved away through those early teenage years, but I did the same, and then picked it up a little bit later on, and because obviously I love the sport. And when I went back to playing, I don't know, probably 10, 12 years ago, the club I played with was Blackburn Orioles, and we they called it some sort of a sister relationship where basically we were able to wear all the Orioles gear when we played, and all of our bags and so forth were branded in the Orioles logos. And I guess that gave me a little
I hope
bit
Mr. Angelos doesn't find out about that you were using his branding. He probably wouldn't like that.
Oh, you speak to the club about that, not me personally, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
You've never met Mr. Angelos. I have.
No, I haven't. You have. I believe. I won't go there. But anyway, so that's where I guess the natural link to the Orioles came from, and I guess Australians always love an underdog as well. Someone who's, I guess, the little guy trying to knock off the big guy.
Well, that's what Australia is, right? I mean, that's part of the Aussie spirit, right?
Punching above our weight, and you look at the Orioles, and I think there's a bit of that there too. Competing in the AL East with Boston and New York, there's a little bit of let's take down the big guy, and that's what I've liked. And look, I certainly since probably turning my hand at writing probably 7 years ago, and catching that really last few years of the dark period. Seeing how they've been able to battle against all the odds, we've got to keep in mind, even this year, we say, look, it's disappointing how the O season is starting to slip away at the moment, but you've got to remember people, a lot of experts, and I use that term loosely, said this team was going to win 70 games or 68 games, or, some of those things I was reading. This team always does punch above its weight, or certainly, since under Showalter's guidance, and that's something which I really can relate to as just the way Australian sports is. We always see ourselves as punching above our weight. So I think that's what helps drive the passion as well.
Well, certainly for the Orioles, it is a weekend filled with, all of the exercising of the demons of Yankee Stadium and all the old Yankees and all the horrible losses. And, this is a weekend where the Yankees can end the Orioles season by beating the Orioles. And this is obviously a weekend where Toronto's going to be playing Boston. Boston has a lot to play for here now. They slipped out of the number one. They're one game from slipping into the number three. They would have to go on the road for game one of the ALDS if they finish third. Cleveland has pitching problems. I mean, there's a lot of stories happening here, but at least things right now are trending for Blue Jays-Orioles on Tuesday somewhere. And obviously the Thursday night game is the most important game for the Orioles in Toronto, but I have a feeling, and I said this last week, I booked a flight to Toronto on Tuesday. I fully expect them to be playing on Tuesday. If they're not playing on Tuesday, this is a really lost season for them, having spent so much time in first place.
Oh, couldn't agree more. Post All-Star game, it would have been a real disappointment. I think when they beat San Diego, I think they were 17 or 18 games above 500. And you think, I remember sending out the tweet at the time saying the O's would probably have to go under 500 to miss out on a playoff spot here. No one thought that was going to happen. They were playing pretty well there. If they do miss the playoffs, it certainly is a wasted season. You can't hit 250 home runs in the season. And look, the pitching has struggled at times, certainly, but overall it's been better than we probably expected. So you combine those two elements, and to think if they actually miss the playoffs, you're right, it's a disappointing end to the year. And it'll be interesting to see who is held accountable for that. That's what I want to see. There's a lot of flaws in the way this roster's put together. That's the question. I really love gauging the interest from fans, because what you see in the mainstream media is very different to what the fans are saying. And that's why blogger engaging with the fans is stable.
Well, I mean, in many cases, I've learned that the media doesn't know much being around the team, and the fans know even less because, I mean, you've tweeted many times about Mike Bordick, and the calls of the game on Masson. And, I've talked about the mainstream media here being bought off because I know they are. I don't think they are. I've been involved in this for 25 years. I know how the game works. If you criticize the team, you get your credentials taken away. And you talk about who's going to be held accountable. Here in Baltimore, we have two levels of accountability. There's the accountability we hold the Ravens to, which is very, very high. If they don't make the playoffs, the place gets burned down. With the Orioles, you never expect them to make the playoffs because that's what they fostered for 25 years. And I know from afar, you've watched how empty the stadium has been over the last couple of weeks. And I live 2 blocks from the stadium. I've seen how empty the city has been. This is something I've railed on the radio for 20 years, that at some point they need to sell the sport in some way. And you're over in Australia shaking your head about the way the games are presented because it's not authentic. It's not real. It's almost like professional wrestling, the way the Masson broadcast are portrayed. It's we and us and us and we and us, and I'm in the locker room and I'm on the planes with these guys and I can't criticize them. So there is no public accountability, and there's certainly no accountability for the owner. I find it interesting, and this is exactly what Angelos wants, by the way, that fans get pissed at Dan Duquette about the off seasons as though he's in charge. And if I could impress to anyone anything that isn't along the lines of stupidity and is along the lines of higher thinking, Dan Duquette is not in charge. Dan Duquette tried to leave here last year. Dan Duquette probably, if he owned the team, wouldn't have given Chris Davis $161 million. These are what you're seeing out there. Buck manages it, Duquette manages it, but it's not. It might be a reflection upon them to the naive people, but anyone in the know knows that if they want to keep their job, they'll do whatever Mr. Angelos tells them to do, and Mr. Angelos wakes up on various sides of the bed based on when he's going to put season tickets on sale, which sponsors he's going to allow in, which media he's going to ban, and that would be me, and what the message is, because he sits at home watching Masson every night, and Tom Davis knows that, and Rick Dempsey knows that, and Mike Bordick knows that, and I'm sure Palmer knows that, and they've all been reprimanded at one point or another for anything they would say that would in any way look like criticism of the Oriole brand. And I think as an Australian being so far away from this, I'm sure you're privy to lots of other sports. Like when I watch football on Sunday, Dan, the amount of criticism that every network levies on every coach, every owner, every general manager, every player, the accountability that you're talking about, where they're not looking for goats, they're looking to say, that was this guy's decision, that was this guy's responsibility, and he failed. With an Oriole broadcast, it's Wonderland. There's never any criticism. So when you say who's going to be held accountable, I don't know. I mean, Duquette and Buck Showalter are under contract. I don't think either one of them are going anywhere. So the accountability part will be, we'll just get some new pitchers, and that's how we'll do things. And the Gallardo and Jimenez stories are interesting because of the amount of money the team has paid them and is on the hook to pay them.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, if no one's held accountable, do things change? And that's the frustration. Look, this team's been up there for 5 years now, right? 5 years they've been up there. And it's got to the point now where the fan base, I'm sensing, expect more. It's not just a matter of, let's go win 85 to 95 games and we can get in the playoffs, you beauty. It's when are we going to take that next step? When are we going to get a roster together which is going to progress deeper into playoffs? And I can't see this roster doing it. And if things don't change significantly next year, I can't see it happening next year. Then what happens when Machado goes, if he goes? Those type of things. The window is open now, and I just get this sense, and maybe the last 2 or 3 months has put a darker tint on it than maybe the reality, but I just get this sense that it's slipping away. The chance is slipping away, and I think I'm feeling that from the fans as well, and I reckon it's that which is causing the frustration.
I don't know that it's slipping away if Wieters is gone and, they replace him. The slipping away part would be the minor league system not having anything that is going to look like the next version of Machado or Scope or Britton or whomever those guys would be. That's the worry for me. The worry for me is where's the pipeline, because this isn't a team that's going to go out and buy a David Price. This isn't a team that's going to go out in the free agent market and swap out and take on a $20 million baseball player. They're just not. I mean, the old man's in this fight with for the TV money, which is far more important to him than winning a World Series. I mean, winning this $300 million battle, he would not trade that for a World Series. He just wouldn't. Again, this team can win the World Series 4 weeks from now. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I don't think they will. I don't think it's likely. But I think it's likely they'll be in the tournament next week. And once they get in the tournament, they could play 2 weeks like they did back in June, right? I mean, they really could. They could put together efforts like they did at Fenway Park to win 2 out of 3 2 weeks ago in that incredibly pitched game by Gausman. That could be replicated, or they could be out of the tournament on Sunday night. It could go either way, but I'm with you. The accountability part of this, they are an organization that has no accountability because the guy at the top isn't accountable. You know what I mean? You can't have an accountable organization where the owner never speaks and the owner never takes accountability for many of the things that he does that get pawned off on Duquette or Showalter or the farm department or the sales team or the ticket office or the network. He wields so much power there, and the fans are oblivious to it, or they just don't accept the fact of who owns the team and the way this thing's been run for a quarter of a century.
It's interesting. You mentioned Buck there, and a few. It's incredible the amount of criticism Buck cops on social media. And look, I have been perplexed at a few of the decisions this year. Certainly I feel he can leave pitches in too long at times. Hyun-Soo Kim certainly probably hasn't been playing as much as he should have. Alvarez at times as well. And there's those things where I query it. But, Buck can only do so much. He can only work with what tools he has. And, when you got guys like Gallardo working at nearly 6 point whatever, or nearly at 6 ERA, and Miley up until his last 1.5 starts has been atrocious as well. You can only do so much with the cattle you've got, and that's where I kind of feel for Buck a little bit. And I think quite a lot of criticism is unfairly labelled as him.
See, I don't see that. I mean, again, I'm not on social media and hearing what fans say every minute of a game because I've done this for 25 years. Buck Showalter has forgotten more about baseball than anything you've ever read on Twitter by far. He's there. He's the one who is accountable. He really is accountable. Yeah. Like, they'll either win or lose, and he's either going to get a World Series ring at some point or he's not. And much like we see Steve Smith with the Ravens, guys that are obsessed with winning when they've been doing it this long, and they've got a big house, and they've got a big car, and they've got a beautiful family, and they've got enough money for the next 5 generations, then it really does become your ticker and saying, winning is the only thing you don't have, and it's the only thing you can't buy with all the money you've made, right? And the lifestyle that you've had. So I think Buck is as frustrated as anyone, but Buck signed up to work for this creep owner, and then when he needs something or needs help, the owner might give it, the owner might not give it, but I know one thing that Buck has to do. Buck has to get in front of the cameras on the owner's network and say, everything's fine with Peter. We're fine. This is the team I wanted. I wanted Wade Miley. I wanted Gallardo. I wanted to give Davis $160 million. We wanted Wieters back. He's going to say all of that stuff. And then the question is how much of it's true and how much of it's just a lie.
What's his favorite phrase? I like our guys.
I like our guys. Right. There you go.
I like our guys. Exactly. So I know what you're saying.
Well, the guys he likes wind up in the lineup, right? I mean, the fact that Ryan Flaherty is here, the fact that Steve Pearce was brought back, I look at those guys and say, those were Bucks guys. And I tell you what, it may be Gonzalez and Chen and a couple of these other guys. I can't imagine Buck lost that argument on Gonzalez. I mean, that had to have been a Buck decision, too, to say, I don't like his velocity. We've gotten as much as we're going to get out of him. Let's just move on. But that was one of the tougher decisions they made this year. Dan Clark is here. He is Dan Clark Sports. Yeah. And from Australia and Melbourne. Tell me some more, Dan. Tell them where to find you out there, man.
Most of my articles are on australia.com. And, hit me up on Twitter, Dan Clark Sports.
Always a pleasure, my man.
No, it's really good to have a chat, and who knows? Maybe I might be able to swing a flight up to Brisbane when you guys are there and catch up.
Hey, man.
Maybe go watch an Australian baseball league game.
Well, there you go. I don't know if my wife's going to get off the beach in time to do that. But great having you on. Dan Clark Sports is the way to find him out on the internet, and TLC as well daily, I believe. That's correct. Yes, I'm reading off let me make sure I get that correct. I'm on my mobile device. This is no way to surf the world when you're. So I had my internet blew up on me. My Wi-Fi blew up on my card in the middle of the conversation. Dan Clark Sports out on Twitter is the way to find him. You can find me in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. Nasty at WNST.net finds me, and around the world, including Australia, we are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.